today's Adachi. Oh wait. Your hair is looking as pretty as always. I wonder what conditioner you're using. Your hair is looking as pretty as always. I wonder, what conditioner are you using?
Please. You know we just took a bath together. Shimamura?
That's me.
I'm still not sure if I want us to go.
Come on, Adachi. We talk about it. Each time we finish a volume, we should go celebrate it.
Yeah, but...
And we already missed the last one because you wanted to go on a date. So we have to make up for that.
I know that. It's just... Last time you spent so much time with that other girl, and...
Tell you what, if you behave like a good girl, after we are done tonight, I'll... And then... Pretty good deal, don't you think?
Fine. But you better keep your promise.
Don't worry, I will. Settle it. Now, the rest of you, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to the Doki Reading Club channel, and come by tonight for a party in the Adashima server. Link down below in the description. But now, it is time to Adashima and chill. Today's Adachi said that we'd gone to different schools, so that our gym didn't have a second floor. Said that I'd been a slightly better student. If any of or all of those things had been true, will something still have a sprout between us? Fate. Fate, it truly was a curious thing. Chapter 4. Quiet Praying. I had a tendency to sleep incredibly well. I wonder, was that the reason why I saw more dreams than your average person? Most likely. What part of me did it feed? What sort of nourishment did it grant me? I had to determine the answer to those questions. In order to find it, I decided to go back to sleep. Dreams are nightly adventures. That was something a person had once said. What person? I honestly couldn't remember. Whereas mom often called me lazy for spending my entire summer break in bed, this way of viewing the situation was much less cold and heartless. Night was when a person's heart opened. There, in the deep darkness, an occasional sparkle of light could be seen. That light was what people called memories. Without the glimmer of memories, a person's heart will be consumed entirely by darkness. They'd be left unable to go anywhere. In the darkness, someone called me. Shima! I turned around, only to be met by the clear blue sky. It could be almost bright all the time in your dreams if you so desired. After all, they only consist of your most vivid memories. A young version of Jeremy ran up to me. Swiftly, she passed me by. I turned to look in the direction where she was running, and there, I was standing myself, but smaller. I could barely remember what she looked like. This was before I had begun paying attention to my own face, back when my eyes had been constantly pointed at the world around me. So, this was what it'd been like, huh? Those were the thoughts that passed through my mind as I chased after the two. There was no need for me to run. Rather, I could keep up with them by walking just slightly faster than normal. Naturally had been tiny back in the day. That was something that was made beyond clear to me. Such stumpy limbs, yet so free. I could simply reach for anything I wanted and grab it. We were currently walking down a road located near where I lived. No cars passed through here. Looking around, I saw that the buildings were not the same ones from the past, but rather those from my current memories. The only thing that changed was the blue sky above me. I went ahead and held out my hand. Just like back then, I still couldn't even begin to reach it. Squishy, squishy, squishy. Shush. I should have been aware of it. What even was the sound that left my mouth? Was I laughing? Based on her laugh, Terumi seemed to find it out as well. I remember us having conversations like this pretty often. We just laughed, and yet somehow it felt like we'd understand one another. It was like there was a connection of some sort between us. The awake me had barely any memories left of the time back then, of the time we spent together back then. It was only in my dreams that I was able to see her. Speaking of Terumi, back then, her nose used to run all the time. Not just that, she always had this bone-headed look on her face. I kinda feel like if I were to that out to her now, she'd argue against it. Deny that was how things ever were. Not that I'd seen her in a while. Not just that, I hadn't heard her voice once after bluntly ending that call on her. She'd cling to me, and we'd part ways. She'd approach me again, only for us to grow distant once more. Was this going to result in not losing touch? Had we already? While unfortunate in some ways, it wasn't like there was anything that could be done to stop it. After all, if I did go see her in secret and Adachi found out, she'd end up in tears. I was sure of it. She was not my girlfriend, and she was definitely acting the part. What about me, though? Will I be able to pull through here? Probably. As long as I did my best to fulfill Arashi's wishes, then everything will be just fine. At the same time, even though Adachi was so in love with me that it kinda scared me, I wasn't entirely sure whether I had it in me to reciprocate her feelings. Not yet, at least. I wasn't as starved for love as she was. Why? Because I'd already received so much from other places. So, little Shima, where are you going today?
Where am I going?
You know, maybe the school playground?
Oh, right. I remember that.
I got to visit the sports ground of an elementary school located near my house to travel with Harumi. Those had been simpler times, and as such, even those not part of any relevant clubs were able to just walk in. I just loved nothing more than playing with the ball. I assumed that Harumi liked it too. If nothing else, she joined me quite often. Could it be? Was it actually me who she liked? What a conceit thing to even consider. Regardless, it was me being the way I was that made me unable to stay with her forever.
Hmm.
Huh? turning just her head, the small me took a glance in my direction. I know what you're going to do, Shima. Once you make friends with the other girls, you'll cast me away. The small Tarami also turned to look at me. The gentle smile on her face faded away, replaced by something far colder. The image that came to my mind was that of ice cold spring water I'd once touched while on a holiday with my family. It was currently summer, and yet I found myself shivering to the core. There was something so outwardly, so inhumane about the face of a child stripped of happiness.
Yeah, that's what I did.
With my head tilted to the side and with my face twisted to form a forced smile, I stared at the manifestation of guilt. Human relationships always require the participation of both parties. That was to say, the reason why ours had failed was because she tried to make me carry it all by myself. Has she really thought that I was the sort of person capable of following these things? Me, a child constantly running around and hit her head on stuff. Yeah, sorry, but that's how it is. That was what the small me told her. Still, you shouldn't be sad, Taru. I'll always be with you. Always? Yes, always. Having said that, the small me grasped her hand. Taru looked very pleased as she sniffed her nose. It feels so philosophical. Still, what was going on here? The part of the conversation that I recalled, that I understood. However, these words of telling me to talk about a future, where had they come from? This was my dream, and as such, everything here should have originated from my mind. And yet what she said didn't. Who was it that created dreams? I look up at the sky. Did there exist someone beyond it? Someone who I didn't know about with the ability to peer into my memories? Staring at the sky, I found my consciousness fading away. That was a dream I had. I already kinda knew that it was the case. But as it turned out, fully immersing myself into a dream allowed me to spend much more time in it before waking up. I had a hard time agreeing to the statement that dreams were nothing but illusions of one's mind. Why was that? Because occasionally they will open me a window to the past. The things I'd seen tonight. There was a definite sense of reality to them. It was a completely dark in my room, a rare sight for someone like myself who normally never woke up in the middle of the night. I went ahead and rolled to my side to see if I'd be able to go back to sleep. Oh well. I found myself walking down the same road once again. It was almost as if the dream that line had been a film or something.
Pretty boring film, I have to say.
To the other people, it must have seemed like I was merely walking. Perhaps they even thought that I was an especially dull person, someone doing their best to avoid paying attention to the people she passed by. I couldn't really blame them. Terumi, the young me, neither of them were here anymore. They would have blended right in with this background, I bet. The two, such good friends. No longer this scene exists in reality. It was only my memories that kept alive. I really didn't feel like things could work out anymore between me and Terumi. We met again after all these years, we concealed, and became friends anew. And yet, here I was, actively working towards breaking away from her like I had done in the past. Even I myself could tell that much. If my goal was to stay with her, then I needed to do something right about now. And yet, there was a certain force that held me back and stopped me from going. That force was Adachi. It was all because of Adachi. My relationships had all faded because of her. Thinking about it rationally, I was actually it was actually quite a serious issue. Bit by bit, Adachi was eroding me. She was setting up all these rules while completely ignoring my feelings and circumstances. She was not just, not even when dealing with me.
You had to look no further than this bias of hers to see why she felt the way she did, where the intense emotions she harbored in her mind came from. Jealousy, disagreement, affection. Those were just a few terms I'd use to describe how I felt about the sheer strength of her will. They were completely contradictory, yes, but at the same time, I truly did experience every single one of them all at once. A person's thoughts and feelings were always complicated. There was no rhyme nor reason to them, and there was not meant to be. And yet, Adachi, she held no contradictions in her mind. She was straightforward and to the point. Her feelings were like ore from under the ground, completely raw and untreated. If I had to name a specific part of her that I felt attracted to, perhaps it'd be that. A shadow of white passed by my feet. Sprinting like a manifestation of the wind, his tail brushed against my eyes. Ah, it was gone. Though already old, he was walking just like he used to back in the day. Why was that? Because I was picking out only the best parts and discarding the rest. Closing the distance between us, Gon snuggled up to me.
Hey, are you energetic today?
He was so old, and yet here he was, acting like a puppy. Oh, dreams sure were nice. Feelings of all sorts kept flowing through my mind. I wanted to chase Gon, but simultaneously, I also wanted to start crying. After thinking about it for a moment, I decided to do both at the same time. I ran after him in tears. There was no one around, no one was looking my way, so what? So what if someone saw me crying? Why did that matter? Once I woke up, not even I could remember what had happened. I ran at full speed. My torso felt light, almost as if I'd left my lungs behind. In that vein, since I didn't need to breathe, there was nothing to stop me. I ran and ran. And yet, it didn't feel like I was getting anywhere. I was incapable of reaching Gon. Though the street as I knew it wasn't all that long, no end could be seen to it now. Oh, that was a good thing, I felt. It meant that I could keep chasing him forever. The world around me spun like a whirlpool. With each step, my surroundings grew lighter and lighter. Both Gon and the town were fading to white. Like a piece of paper, the ground beneath my feet, too, wrapped in on itself. It was almost impossible for me to chase Gon at this point. Both him and I were disappearing. I didn't want that. I didn't want either of us to vanish. I wanted to stay right where I was. I woke up, and this time what I saw was gray light. The pale glow of the morning sun was shining in through the gaps in my curtains. Just a bit longer, and the day would start. I decided that I might as well get up from bed and do some gymnastics or something while I waited for the rest of my family to wake up. Or maybe not. I turned to my other side. As I did, I could feel that my cheeks were warm. It was almost like I'd yawned so hard that tears had started flowing down them. Yeah, figures. It was too late. Softly, I closed my eyes once more. Nothing was impossible for me. This time, there was no one waiting for me.
All alone. Huh.
Just like usual. Still, I had to say, I sure did sleep a lot. That was the realization I came to as I stared at the sky above me. Was sleeping 13 hours a day enough to qualify me as a resident of Dreamland? I had to assume so. Dreams were becoming my reality. There was something quite nice about that, being freed from all the things bothering me. If I had to name one problem, I suppose you could say that not being able to sleep in a dream qualified as that. The thing I found most enjoyable in life had been robbed from me. Putting that topic aside, what surrounded me currently was an endless field of darkness, so thick and deep that not even the dawn could shine through. I felt myself being swallowed by it, and that wasn't a metaphor. I straight up couldn't see my hands in front of me. The concept of me as a person felt like it was on the verge of disappearing, fading away. I turned my head and scanned my surroundings, but no bits of light could be seen anywhere. This dream was one completely lacking in memory. I decided to move my feet around a little. The sound of my own footsteps sounded so very distant. There was definitely a floor beneath me, yes, but whether I was actually walking on it or not, that was difficult to tell. It was as if my feet were sinking into something, like the scenery that surrounded me was moving up and down. Was I actually moving forward? I wasn't sure. Well, obviously, based on nothing more than my own impression of the situation, I kind of felt like this was exactly what Adachi saw each night. It just seemed to me like she didn't have all that many good memories to form dreams around. That, or perhaps her dreamscape was covered entirely in pictures of my face. While she might have been satisfied with that, personally, I found it a bit scary. Then again, I suppose it wasn't the world that she wanted. All she wanted was me. As long as she was able to be with me, then that was all she needed. Nothing else mattered to her. That being said, if Adachi were to ask me to walk to the ends of the world with her, I would say no. If she urged me to take the world to ourselves, then I'd refuse. I'd prefer being by myself at that point. I'd discard all that was bothersome and walk forward alone. As for living with Adachi, that was something I wanted to do surrounded by people. Why was that? Because if it was just the two of us, then that'd be the same as living in a place like this. There was a stark contrast between the barren scenery which now surrounded me and the lovely dream I'd seen earlier. At the same time, this too was very much something that existed within my heart. Moments of fun and enjoyment were always followed by winds so cold they made me shiver. The more fun I had, the more I found myself looking at what came after. The better things went, the more I became aware of the fact that eventually it would all collapse. The darkness, summoned by this way of thinking about the world, acted as a repellent for memories. Time was like water. The more of it you added, the more dilute your memories grew. They'd only grow deeper if you left them be. That being said, there was definitely a point where, after enough time, your memories would begin diverging from what had actually happened. What about mine? Were they still pure? How deep had they grown by now? I could see light. A ball of pale light floated there in the air in front of me. What was it? Where had it come from? I decided to take a step towards it. Just like that, the light was replaced by a head I had seen plenty of times before.
Is it breakfast time already?
It's always fit with you, huh?
Oh, Shimamura.
Why did she say that like some weird foreigner? I wasn't quite sure. The person now staring at me was none other than Yashiro.
Mura.
That's not my name. And still, you just kinda showed up, huh?
Showed up to another person's dream. And not just that, she came demanding breakfast.
It was easy.
Yashiro proceeded to swing her arms up and down in the air. The faint glimmer of her hair allowed me to see that the expression on her face was changing as well.
Still sleeping, are we?
Somehow, it appeared that she was able to tell where we were. What a weirdo. Seriously.
Yep, just a little while longer.
Well, in that case, allow me to join you.
Her tiny feet clapping against the floor, the girl tottered up to me. It was almost like I'd pulled out a lamp or something. That's how glowy her hair was. I could now both see my own feet as well as hear the sound they made as I walked forward. It was difficult to put it into words, but in a lot of ways, it didn't even feel like I was dreaming.
We went on a walk together the other day. Do you remember?
Now tottering by my side, Yashiro asked me this. There was a broad smile on her face.
Huh?
I let you ride on my head, I think.
Oh, right. Yeah, I remember.
She was talking about that time I soared through the skies.
How did you know about that?
Of course I know. I was there.
Although her answers sounded very deep at first glance, I suppose it was correct in the literal sense. I shifted my attention to where the light shining from Yashiro's hair was guiding me. There, I could see someone standing. Her clothes, combined with her mouth, twisted in a cheeky smirk, immediately let me know who this person was. I found myself letting out a short gasp.
It was me, from middle school, a time when my personality had yet to mellow.
Not really what I want to see.
That being said, it wasn't the case that I could simply avert my eyes. Why? because Yashiro was heading that way. If I lost Yashiro, then I'd once again be swallowed by the darkness.
That is you, Shimamura, but young.
Yep, there's no mistaking it.
I was still young even now, thank you very much. Anyway, speaking of the other me, there was nothing about her appearance that immediately stood out. Her expression as she glared at me was stiff, questioning even, almost as if she wasn't really satisfied with the current situation. As for her clothes, she was wearing a basketball club uniform. What a mean look she had in her eyes. Seriously, it was no surprise that no one liked her.
She looks angry.
It sure does. I wonder, what is it that's making her so unhappy?
It was as if she was fighting all by herself. Fighting against what? I tried thinking back to what had gone through my mind back in those days, but it all seems so vague now. The number one thing was that I'd felt unsatisfied, constantly. Never had there been a single moment where I wasn't battling with things that refused to go my way, struggling to get over them. Relationships, school, clubs, grades, my parents, all of them were enemies that I charged towards headlong with no one by my side. The other me tossed me the ball she was holding, as she'd done so with no warning. I obviously missed my chance to catch it, plus the fact that it was pitch black all around me certainly did not help. I wanted to ask her what the heck she was thinking. Then again, I suppose this was exactly how the other members of the basketball club had felt like trying to catch my passes. It was simply impossible to predict what I was up to. Thinking about it that way, I no longer wanted to lecture her. While youth came with enthusiasm, it also came with indiscretion. I'd been right in the middle of puberty back then, and honestly, it explained a lot.
This isn't a nice thing to look at.
It filled me with shame being made to witness my own past. The single most important thing time had given me was self-awareness. Self-awareness that had led me drying up and becoming the person I was currently. I took a step forward and walked past the old me. I kinda thought she might spit on me or something, but no. She let me go, without as much as trying to stop me. Even so, I was sure that seeing how she was going to end up in her future must have been a massive moment of disillusionment to her.
It's embarrassing.
What is?
Then again, my life will not be nearly as soft nor fluffy as it is right now had I not burned out back then.
A stranger from planet Bothersome. Not that such a planet existed. Regardless, there was something that the middle school me had gotten right. You needed to fight to survive. No matter what you did to escape all the bothersome things, the number one enemy of the present me, they would eventually catch up to you and run you over. The me who'd always looked sore. The me I now found so embarrassing. She'd been correct the whole time. It did take a lot of courage to face that fact. At the same time, given that this was a dream, I could cry and yell all I wanted and no one would ever know. No one would witness my shame. I was able to act true to myself without having to keep up appearances.
Nothing really to do, huh?
Well, with the exception of her, I suppose.
I find that relaxing. You don't?
No. Why? Because the sweets aren't sweet here?
She exclaimed, her voice tinged with regret.
This dream isn't sweet, you say? I suppose that makes sense.
Yashiro herself was stating that as a matter of fact, but really, I kinda doubted there was any significant meaning to her words. However, that being said, though you might get to the point where your memories didn't hurt to think about, they were never going to be sweet. Really, at that point, It only caused ever deeper cuts to appear in your heart. There might be a lot of machinists out there who enjoyed such a thing, but I wasn't one of them. Not sweet. Not sweet at all. Grasping this realization in my heart and with my fists clenched, I turned my head till I was staring at the other side of the darkness. Little by little, the darkness was disappearing. It was being cleared away.
Looks like it's time to wake up.
The night had come to an end, and what was revealed in its place was a world filled with both light and things that I found bothersome.
It seems so.
Having said that, Yashiro began floating to the sky. I couldn't help but gasp. He was just straight up flying, with no reason or pretext whatsoever.
I'll be waiting for you and your donuts on the other side, Shimamura.
Why was there an echo to her voice? I had no clue. While this might at first glance seem like we were parting ways, somehow, I had a hunch that once I woke up, I'd once again find her hanging around our house as if she lived there. I suppose that was just fine.
She did kinda help me out here.
I decided that I'd buy her a donut if I were to remember this dream come tomorrow. Well, not that a single one would be anywhere near enough to sate her. Having forgotten everything, all the thoughts that had run through my mind gone, I'd wake up from the dream. The things I was unable to perceive would vanish from my world. That so-called eternity only lasted for as long as I did. A limited eternity. I turned to look behind me, and there I saw standing a dog and a child. Beside them was another child. The two people who'd wanted to touch each other, to understand each other. Though that was now gone, I still didn't want to forget about it. Every time I looked up at them, I found myself thinking the same thing. What had sprouted from me, that something slightly prettier than the rest, I wanted it to last forever. It felt like someone was pushing down on my chest. Like the air in my lungs was flowing the wrong way. I was returning here.
Oh, the phone.
What had pulled me awake was the sound of my phone ringing. Slowly, I forced myself up from the bed. There just so happened to be a clock on my wall, and staring up at it, I saw that the hour hand had rotated backwards by about an hour. Huh? It took me a few moments to comprehend what was going on here. Apparently, I'd slept for 11 hours straight. What a productive start to the weekend. Putting all that aside, I really needed to answer my phone as if it was still ringing. I'd yet to pick the device up, but somehow, I already had a hunch that it was Adachi calling me. She had been the one to pull me back to reality. Without her, I would have probably have ended up sleeping for 13 hours, not 11. Had something like this happened before? I kind of felt like it had. Whatever the case, my heart was most certainly pounding faster now than it had back then. I got up and sprinted to the other side of my room. Doing so cleared my head from all the fog that had been collected up there during the hours I'd spent sleeping. I could feel my blood once more spreading through my entire body, and not just parts of it. The tips of my fingers tingled ever so slightly. Somehow, I got the feeling that I'd seen a lot of dreams last night. That was what I felt. However, as their contents were all mixed together in my head, I couldn't quite tell what they'd been like. Then again, as dreams were little more than fabrications of the mind, I suppose it didn't matter one way or another if I remembered them or not. Nothing was going to change just because I remembered my dreams. Nothing big, at least. As long as my heart felt pure and I was able to confront both reality and my past alike, then that was all that mattered. The real world was filled with all sorts of annoyances. I could feel myself growing tired just thinking about it. However, now, I had someone by my side to fight them with. I wasn't alone. That was nice. It made me so happy.
Hello, Adachi? Yes, yes. I remember the date, right? Yes.
Even I could tell that my voice sounded slightly ecstatic as I picked up the call. I wonder, did Adachi notice that as well? I quietly prayed that she didn't. Why? Because I didn't want my girlfriend to make fun of me.
Alternate Universe 3. In this world. I heard that the store were going out in 3 days, and so I decided to travel for 2. It was quite exciting for someone like me who only knew the town I'd been born in to see how far I could go in my limited time. Live in the moment, I told myself as I left my house behind. My plan was to travel for the first 2 days by myself and then spend the 3rd day with my family. That was to say, I devote a day to walking somewhere and another day to walking back. There was obviously no train running, as the world was coming to an end. Everything had stopped. Fair enough, I suppose. However, since I didn't want to stop myself, I was left with no choice but to travel by foot. Why was it that I was walking? Was I happy? Would tomorrow be a better day than this one had been? Going through these thoughts in order, I just kept on walking. In the dead of night, my feet carried me to a park I'd happened to spot. That was the destination of my journey, its goal. There, at the end of my life, I met her. I met a girl. She too was carrying a backpack, just like me. Not only that, it appeared that even our reasons for setting out were the same. There was no need for formalities. We didn't need to exchange either greetings or our name. No, the similarity between us alone acted as a bridge, let us open our heart to one another.
You have any snacks?
If you mean sweet stuff, then yeah, I have some.
Alright, we both took off our backpacks. After that, we proceeded to exchange a food supply we brought with us. It appeared that, just like me, the girl too was lacking a destination.
I wasn't really heading anywhere. I was just walking. The reason why I stopped here was because I got exhausted.
Wearing the night-like crown, her pitch-black hair fluttered about. As to her face, that appeared so fleeting, so transient, almost as if it had been carved out from a thin layer of ice.
Myself, intended to return home tomorrow. You're not going home?
No.
Hmm.
You're imitating me?
A slight smile appeared on the girl's face. Coldness, reminiscent of the night, could be felt in the way she conducted herself.
If you really don't have anywhere to go, then would you like to come with me to my town?
I decided to try asking her to join my journey, to become my fellow traveler. Why did I do that? Well, I figured that the way back home would be a lot more boring since I'd already witnessed the scenery once. It might be fun seeing what it was like traveling with someone else now that I had the opportunity. That's why I asked her. Rocking her feet back and forth and with her head on, the girl replied me with a smile.
Yes. That might be fun.
It seemed that tomorrow was, in fact, going to be a better day than this one had been.
Say, what's your name?
In likelihood, this was going to be the last time I either heard the name of another person or gave them my name. In a mere 3 days, or really, closer to 2 by this point, her name would no longer carry any meaning to me. And yet, I wanted to hear it regardless. Say that the predictions had been wrong. Say that we were going to die tomorrow and not the day after that. I would still have gotten to hear her name. If it was our fate to fall into a never-ending sleep just like the stars, then me meeting her here was fate as well. That was what I thought. For the human race as a whole, this would have been considered the distant future. However, for me, it was the present. Given that, it wasn't all that concerning for people living on a different planet to come live on ours. That was how I felt, at least. However, for the generation slightly older than me, everyday space travel appeared to be kind of a big deal. They didn't quite know whether to approach it with worry or excitement. To give a concrete example, my parents used to never as much as talk with each other, but now I'd often find them watching TV together. Myself, I chose to stare at the star which floated across the night sky with cold eyes, so that sometime I even heard myself a few comments from people around me. What was I more interested in were the coming exams, and such, my future. There were a lot of things near me that I had to think about first. Those people from other planet, they played no part in my life. That being said, given that I did live in a town located just near where the rocket had landed, and would be able to see them passing through the street as they were welcome to our planet, I decided that I might as well go take a look, out of curiosity if nothing else. We'd been given a day off from school because of the incident, and that too played a big part in me making this specific decision. On top of it all, given that every single TV channel was going to be showing news program about the aliens anyway, the choice was really between seeing them in person or through a screen. And that wasn't a difficult choice at all. The streets outside were all closed off. A bunch of the adults I saw were accompanied by bodyguards. As for curious onlookers such as myself, they were all being drawn near the market spot, their composition resembling a lunchbox tilted heavily on one side. I too became part of the crowd, and quickly my body was swallowed by the heat and warmth the other emitted. I hated it. I really did. Regardless, I'd come this far, and because turning back now would at least be twice as difficult, I decided to stick through it. It appeared that everyone wanted to see the alien. I didn't really get why. I mean, we'd all seen what they looked like on the news, hadn't we? The aliens didn't have a bunch of limbs or anything silly like that. Their mouth also didn't extend all the way to the ears. Furthermore, it didn't seem like they were parasites of some kind that were going to be laying eggs into us either. Really, as far as their look went, they weren't all that different compared to the people of our planet. If I was forced to point out something that stood out to me, then I suppose I would say their eyes' color were slightly peculiar. From what I've heard, various experiments and studies had been ran that confirmed that only humanoid creatures could thrive on a planet sufficiently similar to ours. Apparently, that was simply how the world functioned. As to why that was the case, that seemed to be the question that the scientists were currently trying to answer. All adult did all day long was think about these things that made my head hurt. Truly, they were something else. I hope to never become one. I wanted my life to be more fun than that. Some time passed. It was about when my throat was starting to grow dry that a group of aliens at last showed up. They were riding in a convertible car, and they were escorted by a bunch of people who I assume were there to protect them. If I'm being honest, it was kind of wild looking at them. I almost felt like I was viewing a parade or something. Wait, a parade? Was that really the best comparison here? There weren't even 100 people present. Whatever the case, this was an opportunity to see Alien with my own eyes, and I guess that was really what mattered. Just like I'd heard it said in the news, there was nothing about their physical appearances that stood out. I found myself letting out a sigh. These weren't just normal herd people lying to us and tricking us into believing that they were aliens. Right? Looking around me, it didn't seem like anyone shared my suspicion. I was left with the impression that they were too excited to even contemplate such a possibility. That and too busy making noise. I really hope that the alien remembered to bring earplugs with them. I wonder, what did it feel like becoming, or rather being made, the centerpiece of a spectacle? Were perhaps they afraid? Scared? There were a lot more of us than there were of them. The alien at the front, the one that looked like their representative or something, kept on smiling in a very sociable way. I guess there was nothing to worry about. However, right in that moment, right as I thought passed my mind, the shock I felt was comparable to someone punching me without warning. Had a burden this large, a tax this massive had been placed on my heart? If it had, then I couldn't remember it. I was left unable to breathe for a brief moment. My eyes had met with a girl from the group that was being welcomed in. Was it because the sunlight was so dazzling? Or had something else caught my eyes? Like what? The wind? The cloud? Carrying herself in a manner that could only be described as being exquisite, the girl lifted her head and pointed her gaze toward me. It was in that instant that I spotted her too. From among the people I'd only been glaring at in passing, I found her. We proceeded to stare at one another. I'm not sure if it was the amount of light that did it, but the girl appeared pale, almost fleeting. Her hair was light blonde, and as for her eyes, those were yellow, a similar but deeper tone. One look at her made it clear that this was a sight that I wasn't going to forget easily. It almost felt like I was staring up at rings formed by the sun on the surface of water. Neither of us would avert our gaze, and yet the moment didn't last. The car that carried her made sure of that. I continued staring at the girl. I stared at her until she turned her head back around and I finally lost sight of her. Even now that she was long since gone, I just kept on staring. The clatter of the crowd around me, the thick hair and its warmth, all that had left my mind. A series of thoughts I had a hard time putting into words collected on the tip of my tongue. It was a girl. So was I. And yet, what I felt in my chest was a mix of excitement and impatience. The overwhelming amount of sustenance I'd received had been consumed in an instant. At the same time, my body all felt like it might crumble any second now. The girl from space, given that she was the one who had come to our planet, it was not that simple for me to go see her. You needed to be an adult with specific qualification to be able to do something of the sort. Conversely, that meant that doing so was possible. It wasn't like she was out there in space somewhere. The world we existed in connected us. I'd now decided it. I decided what I would do after school. I would keep going straight and become an adult as quickly as possible.
Years later, it finally happened. Having obtained the necessary qualifications, I went to visit the district given to the aliens to live in. It was quite the nice place. Lots of greenery everywhere, and few people to be seen. I suppose the latter might have been the reason for the former. It took me little time to find the girl. She was sitting on the lawn near the edge of the district, staring at the sky while the wind blew past her. The scene was so idyllic, so fresh and clear, like something from a painting. The intense nervousness I felt in my mind didn't suit it in the slightest. The sound of me stepping on grass as I approached her prompted the girl to turn her head my way. Instantly, her eyes grew narrow. I noticed that her hair was even longer than it had been back then. Simply watching it flow like a stream of threads made of gold caused my face to grow warm. Likewise, her eyes were still just as radiant as before. I felt myself being blinded by them. The girl opened her mouth wide. Her reaction showed that she recognized me. We had never exchanged any words. No, we'd only met eyes from a distance. And yet, just like I remembered her, so did she remember me. I could feel my eyes starting to spin as I thought about what that actually meant. As I took a step closer to her, the girl turned the rest of her body in my direction. She then stood up and greeted me. I couldn't help but notice that she was slightly taller than I was. I'd made sure to bring a dictionary with me, but now its pages appeared empty to me. The words I thought I had memorized refused to come out. It was as if they had all vanished from my mind. My eyes kept spinning faster and faster. The girl appeared confused as to what I was trying to tell her. Likewise, as she responded, I too grew flustered. We had both been skipping our studies and were thus unable to convey our words properly. Yet, I didn't let that stop me. With the dictionary in hand, I went ahead and tried to introduce myself. Using gestures, I explained to her what sort of a person I was. The girl's lips moved as if she was using them to sound out my name. She then nodded. This was followed by her giving me her own name. I wasn't quite able to make it out.
But...
Shimamura. That was what it sounded like she had said. Had I misheard her? Yeah, I must have. I doubt they had already started opening stores in space. The girl proceeded to let out a laugh. It appeared that the way I frantically searched the dictionary while simultaneously scratching my head was highly amusing to her. That smile of hers caused my heart to skip a beat. I could feel something seeping through my body, in parallel to the lines of my wrists. I closed the dictionary shut. There was so much I wanted to tell her. And yet, in that moment, I chose to immerse myself in the coincidence of us meeting in the first place. The rapidly increasing rate of my heart beating was more than enough to convey how I felt. My eyes ended up moving towards the stairs on their own as I stood there at the subway station, waiting for the train to arrive. As usual, I was looking for a certain someone among the sea of office workers. That someone was a woman who boarded the same train I did every morning. Well, I say that, but we did take different carriages. I also didn't exactly know her or anything like that. Really, the relationship between us was such that every morning I would wonder if she was here or not, and each time I'd be surprised that she was. Why was I bringing this up? Well, you see, it just so happened that I had ended up sitting next to her by chance. There was something about her that I didn't quite understand that had drawn me in. Something that had led to me asking what her name was. After talking for a moment, we then parted ways. Oh, and I should say, this had happened yesterday. We hadn't exchanged phone numbers. We hadn't agreed to meet again. That's right. We'd just been talking. We weren't friends. And yet, my encounter with her had immediately caused something akin to impatience to fill my chest. Unable to calm down, I thought to myself, was that really enough? Of course, this wasn't to say that we were now acquaintances or something. Hardly. I wasn't even sure if anything at all had taken place. Erring on the side that nothing had would have been the sensible decision. I knew that. And yet, for whatever reason, I found myself waiting for something to happen. That sure was a lot of contemplating I had done there. While I was busy focusing on things that honestly didn't matter, the lights of the train came in through the tunnel. Was she not coming today? Was she taking a different train? Thinking that, I glanced up the stairs one last time, and there, I saw her. I saw the woman among the people rushing down to reach the platform in time. I could see a smile appearing on my face. The woman made it down the stairs just as the train pulled to a stop. It was there that she noticed me. She stopped in place as if hesitating, but only for an instant. What she did next was walk up to me. The final step was one she took with her legs apart. It was almost like she was stepping across an imaginary finish line. We proceeded to smile at each other in a slightly awkward manner. How was I supposed to greet her? How was I supposed to approach the situation? I didn't really have a clue. To make sure that the train didn't leave without us, we got on without as much as exchanging greetings. There, we were left with no choice but to stand. This being the morning train meant that all of the seats had already been taken. How long was this going to last? How long were we going to be together? I had no clue. Given that we didn't work at the same place, the woman could get off at any stop for all I knew.
Yo!
We took a moment to calm down, after which the woman bowed her head at me slightly. I quickly gave her a
Yo.
of my own. Why were we talking like this?
You were late today, huh?
I used my fingers to gesture her making it to the train just in time. This prompted the woman to use her own to curl her hair around them.
Yeah, I overlapped.
Oh,
Not really a morning person.
I see.
And so, our conversation came to a halt. This was it? This was what conversations were? I thought back to the ones I'd had with my coworkers, and yeah, I suppose that was so. Like, taking two dry stones and placing them next to one another. I'd always thought that was a good thing. I wonder, why was it that I now felt differently? Why did I find myself unable to calm down? It was the woman who spoke. I saw her eyes being reflected on the glass panel of the door in front of us.
Would you like to go have dinner tonight? I know we work at different places, so it might be difficult, but still.
My hand gripping the strap hanger grew stiff.
After work?
Yeah,
This time, I chose to look at her directly.
I don't know why, but I feel like we'd make good friends.
A smile formed on her face as she said that. It was a smile of innocence, one that didn't show her age at all. I could feel all sorts of emotions flowing through me as I stared at her eyes.
Sure.
What prompted me to say that? I didn't know. We were practically strangers. Nothing tied us together. And yet, there was something fun about not knowing. The way I let this brand new experience carry me was how I had always done things. The only difference was that now I was choosing to face things in a positive manner. Truly, it was something mysterious. That was what I thought to myself as my heart continued trembling in the rhythm of the train car. On Monday, while the sun was shining more intensely than usual, I exited my house.
Good morning.
A yawn left my mouth as I thought about school. It was there that I saw her. Like usual, she'd been waiting for me outside the front door. The way she stood by my side almost made her look like my own private secretary. For a moment, I considered acting all pompous for the fun of it. Of course, I didn't actually do that. I just thought about it. I couldn't help but smile, seeing how nervous the simple act of greeting me had gotten her. Her shoulders were all stiff. One careless moment, and her heart might sink in. She was working so hard to make sure that didn't happen.
Good morning, Adachi.
I wonder, how many people were there on this planet right now? How many people would I never have an opportunity to meet? One person I had met was Adachi. It was almost as if it had been meant to happen. In this world, there were so many people I would never meet, but I had met her.
Meanwhile, in another universe.
Thank you, everyone, so much for attending the wrap chapter, final chapters of Adachi and Shimamura, Volume 7. We were so delighted to perform for you today and really hope to see you next time.
Wait, we were?
Of course we were.
What? Were we?
Of course we were. All right, get out of here, you. We'll see you in training. Bye, folks.
Bye.
See you, Naruto.